share at the table. I think we sang already. Well, I came in, I just couldn't help but look at the cross. And, we see it every Sunday. Oh, the cross, the cross. And today it's like it just was so illumified. It just seems so big. When we came in this morning, we sang about power in this hour and God's love not being restrained. We sang so many things about his love for us. And it's so easy to come and be here on a Sunday and, sing the songs and take the table. And then we just leave. I had a devotional that I read the other days. Yes, everybody sit down. Why are you impressed with the battles raging against your soul, as if I'm not with you in the midst of them? Though you are battle weary, I will strengthen you. I have all the grace you need to stand, to breathe again, to see things from my perspective and align your thoughts and words with mine. You're distracted, my child, and it's time to completely release your impossible situation into my capable hands. I remind you over and over, I am the God of impossibility. Nothing is too hard for me. Lean in my arms. Let me be your strength when you have none. Let me breathe into every cell and every thought. Invite me to illuminate every lie with unshakable truth. Choose to be impressed with my omnipotence more than your problem. Bring me your analyzing and overthinking as an offering of total abandon and trust. Fix your eyes on me, and you will feel me washing away the debris and doubt and frustration. Sing your highest praise and choose to believe despite what you see. And I was thinking of the table. I read this and it just really touched my heart. But what touched me more was this table. And I just want to say, it is impossible to take this table today, every Sunday. It is impossible for this not to change your life. It is impossible for us to now, we may have one problem and say, oh, God, fix this. Yeah, it could be. But it is absolutely, totally impossible to take this table and your life doesn't change in some form. It is not an insignificant table, so it's not that our lives may change insignificantly. Our lives will change significantly as we take this table, because he did it. And we've been praying and we've been worshiping and holding up his name and saying this is the hour of power and God moved without restraint. He is. So I'm just want to pray and say, Lord, we hear you today and we're opening our hearts. The only way he can't move is because he is a gentleman, is if we say no. And I love when Pastor Linda always says, even if we aren't able to say yes, help me to say yes. So Lord, we just come and we say yes to you the best that we can. We want to open all the floodgates of our heart that you can enter in and that you can change the things that need to be changed, the transformations, the ways that we see things, the dogmatic thoughts that we have that we know we're right about. Lord, you can change that. So Lord, blow your wind. Your life is in us already. And we just want to thank you for what you're doing today in our lives.
There and support Angel Studios in this movie. It does. It looks really good. Yeah, I can't wait. All right, now with that out of the way, here is a slide, a picture that we have been using the entire series, going all the way back to when we looked at the letters to the 7 churches, and then jumping into this, where we are in Revelation 6 through 18, the tribulation. We're not talking about tribulation that you have in your life, circumstances that you have. I'm talking about a 7-year window of time that the Bible is very clear about, where there is going to be a person that rises to power, ascends to power, the Antichrist. He's going to sit on the throne, the abomination of desolation that Daniel talks about. And this one is going to come. The church is not here in chapters 6 through 18. This is going to be a time that no one's going to want to be on the earth. One of the last sermons that we looked at, things we talked about, by the way, the last 2 weeks were great. got to listen to, even though I'm not here. I listened to 2 weeks ago. Pastor Linda, I thought it was great. Ted last week was wonderful as well. Listen to those if you haven't. They didn't do the book of Revelation, but the last time I spoke about Revelation, we were even looking at the mark of the beast, right? And something that many Christians, many people have posited what it means. And, oh man, you don't want to take the mark. Is it the vaccine? Is it this? Is it that? And all this speculation and all this conjecture. Well, here we are in the midst of this book, right? The last book of the Bible, the only one that offers a blessing for those that read it, the only one. And we are moving toward the end here of this part of chapters 6 through 18. Today, we're going to be in chapters 15 and 16. And we ended 2 weeks ago, we were looking at chapter 14. And I said that was just a little recap, that an angel, the three angels that are there, but one angel that goes out and is delivering the gospel. It's the only time we see in the entire Bible that an angel is delivering the message, that is evangelizing. And what that's going to look like, how that happens during this tribulation period of time, these 7 years, I don't know. But it will be pretty fascinating to see. And hopefully we don't want to see that, because what's coming on the earth during that time period, nobody's going to want to be around for. But these here today, and I stopped 2 weeks ago in my tracks, there is one word that we're going to look at today. Not the easiest sermon to deliver. This is a heavy topic. I'm just letting you know right now. We're going to be talking today about God's wrath. God's wrath, right? You excited about that? How many of you are excited about that? Couldn't wait to get up this morning and hear about God's wrath. Well, look at these chapters, and I'm not going to be really exegeting or really moving through these chapters in a way. I'm giving you a broad overview, right? I want to look at the topic itself. That's what we see here in these chapters, but it's not even these chapters. Can I tell you? Wrath is, you see God's wrath throughout the book of the whole Bible. There's different books in the Bible. It's not just in Revelation, but I need you to see how these chapters are bracketed, okay? New American Standard Bible in 15:1, it says here, John writing, "Then I saw another sign in heaven, great and marvelous, 7 angels who had 7 plagues, which are the last, because in them the wrath of God is finished." Right? So it says there in the beginning of the chapter, 15, and then we move into, we talked about, and I'm going to put a chart up in a second, we looked at in this book, there are 7 seals, there are 7 trumpets, and then ultimately, the worst part here, these 7 bowls of judgment that are going to be poured out on the earth. But look here, 15:1, it starts here. Now let me show you what it's bracketed by in 16. I never saw this my entire life. In studying the Bible, only when I really got into it and I had to teach this, I'm like, oh my gosh, how did I miss this? Look at this next, the end of 16. Look what it says. "And the great city was split into 3 parts, and the cities of the nations fell. And Babylon the Great was remembered before God." We're going to get into that another week, Babylon. I'm not getting into that much today. "To give her the cup of the vine of his fierce wrath." So, beginning of 15, end of chapter 16, how it's bracketed, and it talks about the wrath of God. Here is a chart. It's really hard to see here. Trying to find one. We talked about the 7 seals already, earlier in the book of Revelation. Then the 7 trumpets and the 7 plagues, or the 7 bowls. And here they are. This is what you see in chapter 16. Again, giving you a 30,000-foot overview of what we see in the chapters. In 16, you see these. I mean, just look at how horrific this is going to be on planet Earth. Verse 1, people are afflicted. Those who accept the mark of the beast, they have sores. All right, that sounds great. Sea turns to blood. All sea creatures die. Wow, okay? And you go on. Rivers turn to blood. Mankind is scorched by the sun, blaspheming God. The beast, you see these 7 bowls of judgment that are going to be poured out on the earth. Now your brain should be working your mind should go back to the Old Testament, because this is the children of Israel, very similar to the plagues that were poured out when Pharaoh would not let the children of Israel go, right? And Moses goes there. Very similar. We can go into crazy detail on that. I'm not, but it's something, if you want to look at this with the 7 bowls. Again, this is the second part of the Great Tribulation, right? The 7-year window, this is the 3.5-year window, which is going to be much worse than the first 3.5 years, this time period. Now, let's talk about the wrath of God here. Let's get into it. Let's get into the topic. I don't think I've ever taught a sermon. You probably have. I never taught a sermon on the wrath of God, ever, right? And it's never. You never did either, right? I'm scared. Walking in today, I was a little scared to teach the topic. I'm not going to lie. But excited in a sense, too, because I think we've misconstrued. I think we've gotten a negative picture of what the wrath of God really is. And I'm going to hope and do the best that I can, because we're not swimming in the shallow end. We're really in the deep end with this. Way over certain topics you preach on, and you're over your head. I'm over my head. I'm just going to tell you right at the top, I'm over my head. Right, preaching some of this stuff. These are some of the deepest things that we can look at when looking at the attributes of God. Well, what it doesn't mean here, it does not, I think when you hear the word wrath, what do you think of? Wrath. You hear that. You hear anger, right? Emotional, intense anger. Like, you don't want to catch mom's wrath if you don't do this. You don't want to catch dad's wrath if you don't, oh gosh, man, you better watch, right? That's how we talk about wrath. We hear somebody say, you're going to catch their wrath. I wouldn't do it. Right? We tell the kid, listen, if mom finds out that you are going to catch her wrath, and she is going to come after you. Intense, burning, emotional. Can I tell us right here, that is not what John is referring to. And it can be irrational passion. That is not what this means biblically. Wrath is the exact opposite of that. It is not, and I love what one scholar said. One scholar said, the wrath of God, ready for this, is God's strong and settled opposition to all that is evil. That is God's wrath. His settled opposition to everything that is evil in the world. Okay, now I'm going to put up, a couple of weeks ago I told you, I am going to drop it's a nuclear bomb on you. I read this in a Tim Keller book years ago. Never thought I would use the quote, and it's by a woman, right? And we're talking about women. Cabrini, right? Francesca Cabrini, the Italian woman, fights the anti-Italian sentiment in the country. How can you be against the Italians coming in, bringing the pasta, bringing the sauce, bringing the managot, bringing all the good food, right, to America? Anyway, so you have a quote here from a woman. Her name is Becky Pippert, and she's an evangelist. This just arrested me when I read it, and I'm going to give it to you, and I'm telling you preemptively, like, you're going to probably need to, like, read this on your own, like, later on. At least I've had to read it 1,000 times because I've gotten so much out of it. All right, you ready for this? I really built it up. I don't know. Let's hope you think it's as good as I do. Think how we feel when we see someone we love ravaged by unwise actions or relationships. Do we respond with benign tolerance as we might towards strangers? Far from it. Anger isn't the opposite of love. Hate is. And the final form of hate is indifference. Oh my gosh. A wrathless God cannot be a loving God. Human love here offers a true analogy. The more a father loves his son, the more he hates in him the drunkard, the liar, the traitor, things that we see in our kids. You following me? Okay. Here's the last part. If I, a flawed, narcissistic, sinful woman, can feel this much pain and anger over someone's condition, how much more a morally perfect God who made them? God's wrath is not a cranky explosion, but his settled opposition to the cancer of sin, which is eating out the insides of the human race he loves with his whole being. It's a mic drop. It's one of the best things I've ever... Listen, I studied and read everything under the sun the last month on God's wrath. I heard some of the worst sermons you could ever possibly imagine by big names. I was embarrassed by some of the sermons that I heard. I didn't say this one's going to be good. I just said to you, I heard a lot, I've read a lot, and it's just like, really? This to me hits home. This is the message. This is God's wrath. You can't understand a God of love unless you understand a God of wrath. You can't understand a God of wrath until you understand how much he loves us. A God of wrath is showing how much he loves us and how much he hates sin. It's a settled opposition to everything that has hurt the human race. Think about it. Think about it. If you don't get angry at anything, you don't love anything. If you don't get mad, tell me if you see your kid going down the wrong path that you don't get angry and you don't get mad. Are you with me? Right? You get upset when you see your kids doing something wrong. No, I'm going to give you a story and you're all going to judge me, okay? If you don't know, I'm a teacher too in a high school, right? I'm bivocational. And I had a situation this year. We have many of you, we have a special needs child. And he's home and God only knows what he's doing right now. He's climbing on furniture before I came. He's finally potty trained, but he's out of he goes in the bathroom now. You know what his new thing is? Great. Yeah, it's great. Yeah. He goes in the bathroom and he turns the shower on. He turns all the faucets on. So all last night and today, and he laughs. He thinks it's funny. And he runs away and then he jumps on, whatever. Anyway, okay. So here's what I want to tell you, though, about getting angry, though, right? And understanding, showing love. I had a situation at school where there is a kid that is a special needs kid. Right? And he is the mayor of the school. He walks around, hey, Mr. Lecce, how's it going? How's it going? How's your day going? How's your day going? Right? And he's just the nicest kid in the world. He's like, everyone kind of loves him. But there were a couple of kids earlier in the year that were picking on him. Okay? I found out about this, and they were using the R word, and they were saying certain things to him. Now, he's a freshman, like in the school, so, okay. So then I find out about this, all right? Right? Okay. I'm going to handle this like a rational teacher. I'm at the end of a teaching career. I've been in education, 27, 28 years, right? I'm going to handle it like a veteran, like somebody that is a seasoned, right, educator. I know what I'm going to do, right? So I'm going to find out who these kids are, and I'm just going to go up and talk to them and have like a nice little conversation. Because when I see that kid, I see my kid at home, and I see other kids like that. So there is like righteous anger. But I go into the cafeteria. Kids are sitting in the back. I find out where they are, and I just go up to the table, and I start talking to the kids. And I'm asking, I said, none of you used that, said this about this kid, and none of you, and then I blacked out, right? Because one kid, kind of came at me a little bit, I didn't know who this kid was, and then I don't know what I didn't curse, but I blacked out. And I said crazy things, and then it was one of those things, I'm again, you're going to judge me, but I'm like, oh, no, you should never have me in your high school career. You don't ever want to sit in my classroom, because if you do, you're going to catch my wrath, right? No, I'm serious. I was pretty serious. I had to go to the assistant principal. I would say, hey, look, are you going to phone call at some point later? Just so you know, as a kid I taught, the principal, he's somebody I taught years ago, and he kind of laughed, and he's like, oh, no, I'm dealing with it. I'm like, no, you better deal with it, because it's not dealt with. Because those kids are doing that. And I'm like, I got mad, and then I talked to some of the older kids in the school. And I'm like, hey, listen, do you know this you love this kid, right? He's getting picked on. That can't happen again. And if it happens again, then I'm coming after you, and I'm blaming you. So you better handle the situation. Yeah, that's right. That's how you handle it. Yeah. Anyway. Again, you can judge me. It's all right. Anger shows love. Because I love that kid. And I love who he is, and I love what he represents. And I'm not going to let somebody, and you would be the same way as a parent, as an educator. I've watched parents come in when their back goes up, and sometimes rightfully so, when things happen in school and things are said to their kids. That's how we act. You get angry because you love something, and you show that. That's what we kind of need to see. So you know what? You look at God. God, in one sense, He is so loving, right? When Jesus is God incarnate, right? So when Jesus comes, think about Lazarus. He comes to the tomb of Lazarus, and it's the shortest verse in the Bible. I love to memorize this when I was in school because it was the shortest. It says Jesus wept. And we see Jesus' love there. You see his love. Oh, man, that's great. His love. But we also need to understand here and see that Jesus is a God is a God of judgment. There is judgment and there is love, and you don't have one without the other. He is both. He is both a God of judgment and he is a God of love. And the judgment comes through love. Maybe I need to say it again. His wrath is controlled. It is settled opposition to evil and injustice. It is never him losing his temper, because I think that's what the world says. How could a loving God send people to hell? Are you kidding me? That's what we hear in the world. That's what you hear all the time. No, he has been so patient. You look in the Bible at Revelation at these chapters at 15 and 16, it's God waiting. It's God waiting over and over for centuries as man turns his back. God, there's nobody that is more patient than God, waiting and hoping and loving people in spite of them turning their back on him. That is who our God is. That's how loving he is. But that's not how the world sees it. So, you think about it too, in the way we raise our kids. Think about it. If you have a God, how do I say it? Maybe I'll say it this way. If you're raising your kids and you let your kids just kind of do whatever you want, right? Hey, just do whatever you want. I'm all about love. I just love them. I have parents like that, right? How many parents I've met that they just want to be friends with their kids? And they don't want to discipline their kids. How's that going to work out for the parent that just says, I love them and I want them to do whatever they want? No, I'm not going to discipline them. Is that going to work out for that kid? No. But on the other side, I've seen parents too. None of you are like this, right? None of you in the room. But there are parents that show no affection and they show no love, and it's all about rules and following the rules. And that kid too, if he gets no affection and no love, it's going to do great harm to him as well. Right? Are you with me on that? So I look at it, I think we need to understand, you know what we try to do? Can I just throw up my cards out on the table? And I forgot the thing. You know the thing that you gave me? We put the box thing and like, let me out. I forgot it. I was going to use it today. Forgot it on my dresser. I'll wait. You know what we really try to do? We try to master God. You know what we need to deal with? Not the wrath of God, our wrath against God, because we can't control him. I told you I'm going deep today, okay? We need to understand we get mad at God because we try to lock him up and control him. And you know how we try to control him? You know what we've talked about for the past 2 years? We've talked about religion. You know what religion really is at the end of the day, the more I think about it? It's us trying to control God and say, God, I'm a good person. I follow all the rules. Come over here. I'm going to shackle you and control you. Now that I followed all of your rules, I want you to give me the life that I want. I want you to do what I want. I'm your God. You're not my God. That's what Christianity, that's what I see everywhere. And I have some of it inside myself. If I read my Bible and I study and I go to meetings and I come to church on Sunday and I follow all the quote unquote rules, God, you have to do what I want you to do. And then when God doesn't do what we want to do, we become disenchanted and we become disillusioned with Christianity. It's like Chesterton said, right? Many people have tried Christianity and they left wanting. They felt like, God didn't do what I thought he was going to do, because that's your figment of your imagination of who you think God is and what you think Christianity is really about. Christianity is not about religion. We keep saying it for 2 years. It's about another life that lives inside of you. He lives in us and through us. Religion says, no, you can do it on your own. You can control things. You can control God. And don't tell me, because I hear it over and over again, and it breaks my heart, and I know it breaks the heart of God. When things happen to people, so many people are going, how could that have happened? Megan and I had a conversation the other day about something, nobody in the church, but somebody we know, a Christian, and this person was looking at somebody else's life and was like, kind of like puzzled, perplexed, that something had happened to them really bad. Like, can you believe this happened to them? Wow, I can't believe that actually happened to them. Where do we get off thinking that, again, that's control, that if something happens in our life, but God, that person has done the right thing. They served you in church. They've served you with their life. They're a good parent, which means that you have to give them a good life. Where is that in the Bible, y'all? Don't come at me with that garbage because it's not biblical. We are not guaranteed. We are guaranteed that he's going to be with us, that his life lives on the inside of us and through us, and that he'll walk with us through the fire. That's all you get, and that's all you need. Whatever happens. I'm home with a special needs kid. I know when life doesn't work out the way that you want, it's okay because he knows. His ways are not our ways. His thoughts are not our thoughts. Much higher. We got to lift our vision higher of who God is and what he's doing in our lives. Again, we want to shackle him. This is the way life is supposed to be. This is the way, God, you're supposed to follow my idea of how life is supposed to go. Church, we can't live that way. I'm talking to myself. Because never before have we been more tempted to be angry at God. The amount of people that are offended with God when life doesn't work out the way they want, when they lose somebody, where is there a guarantee in the Bible? Tell me, where is it? Look in the Bible at all the characters. Look at what train wrecks they are. Look at the situations they go through. Daniel's in a lion's den. David, the list goes on and on of situation after situation after situation. Don't fall into the trap. Don't fall into the trap. Pastor Linda, how about this? I'm going back to this. This is an illustration we've used for years ago, I should say. Haven't used it in a long while. The movie Amadeus, I couldn't think of a better illustration. Use it at a retreat. I used it years ago. A lot of you probably wouldn't remember this. A lot of you don't know what I'm talking about. Well, the picture you see before you, the guy on my left, that's Mozart. Right? The man that is on the right, his name is Antonio Salieri, another Italian. Gosh, there's a lot of Italians today, right? And the movie Amadeus chronicles, even though a lot of it is fiction, it is not accurate history, and I got more into it even this week, right? This guy Salieri, is getting a lot more, history has been more kind to him as of late. But the movie, it depicts these two guys, and there's a scene in the movie where the guy Salieri, they're contemporaries, and kind of in competition with each other. That's how it's depicted in the movie. And this guy Salieri, right, who's this Italian composer in the 18th and 19th centuries, he says, when I was a boy, I really loved God, and I gave the most noble prayer a boy could pray. Lord, make me a great composer. Bring great music into the world through me so that people will praise my very name and that I will be famous. Make me a great composer. Use me like that. Friends, he's saying, I will give you my allegiance if you give me what I want out of life. That is how a lot of Christians are living their lives. I'm going to give you my allegiance. I'm going to give you who I am, but I want you to, this is a relationship where you better reciprocate. If I come to church and I do the right thing and I follow the quote-unquote rules, then you have to give me what I want in life. And this is bringing a lot of people down. It's religion. It's religion. It's what religion is trying to sell people. The enemy is using religion. Follow the rules and you'll get everything you want. And then when people don't get it, when life doesn't turn out the way they want, they get upset and they run from Christianity. I get it, because you ran away from something that wasn't real. And he gets mad in the movie. Why? Because he's been a good person. He gives to the poor. He does the right thing. Right? You hear people, it's about, right? How many, you hear people go, it's about being a good person. It doesn't matter what religion you follow. Just be a good person. Yeah, how good is good enough? Okay, let's get into a whole conversation. How good is good enough? Just to rip through that theology because it's so weak. There's so many holes in it, more holes than a piece of Swiss cheese. Okay? Now, in the movie, what's great, he gets mad at Mozart because Mozart, he feels like he has lesser moral attainments. He doesn't live the kind of life that he lives. So he looks at that and criticizes it, and he sees Mozart, how talented he is. And it just incenses him. He hates the fact that Mozart has been given this God-given ability that he wishes he had, and he feels like he's earned because he's done the right thing with his life. Follow me? And then here is the epic scene, right? I was going to show it, but then I'm like, I'm not going to show it. I'm just going to tell you. So the scene is, he's looking up at a crucifix. He realizes what God has done. He's not answering his prayer, and this is the line. Ready? He says, from now on, we are enemies, you and I, looking at a crucifix. Then he takes the crucifix and he throws it in the fire. Powerful scene. Because he's saying again, God, you owed me this and you didn't come through. You see, friends, we can't, again, I'm trying to flip it, I don't know if I'm doing a good job, but you can't understand the wrath of God until you understand your wrath against God because he hasn't given you the life that you want. I don't know if that makes sense to you because that's the only way I can kind of get through this for my own life. Does that make sense? Yeah? All right. And you know what's hard sometimes when you're preaching something and you're like, I've lived in this for so long, and I know me saying it to you, it might take you a little while for the wheels to turn and for some of this to really soak in. I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe you're like, just, when are you done? I'm getting there. I'm getting there. And then think about this, y'all. Think about this. Let me take you to what is actually happening. In talking about the wrath of God, can we look at what is taking shape on the cross? Dana talked about it at the table this morning. What is actually happening at the cross of Calvary 2,000 years ago? God is absorbing that wrath, okay? And you have to see it this way. Look at this scene right here. I just pulled from John. We could look at Matthew adds a couple of pieces here too. But Judas has betrayed Jesus, right? And they come to the garden, and he's going to get arrested here. And it says, if you are looking for me, then let these men go. The Roman guards have come up. They're going to arrest Jesus. This happened so that the words he had spoken would be fulfilled. I have not lost one of those you gave me. Then Simon Peter, who had a sword, right? Simon Peter, he's impulsive, he's impetuous, right? He struck the high priest's servant. His name is Malchus, cutting off his right ear. This gospel account doesn't tell us. Jesus does the Mr. Potato Head thing, puts the ear back on, right? Doesn't say it here. Jesus commanded Peter, put your sword away, Petey. I love it. I love the intensity, but come on. Shall I not drink the cup the Father has given me? Shall I not drink the cup the Father has given me? Pretty interesting. The cup of the Father. You know what cup means? Cup literally means wrath. Cup literally means wrath. As I'm studying this, do you know in ancient times when they executed criminals, you know what they would usually give them? They would give them a cup of poison. They would give the criminals a cup of poison. Socrates. Right? Socrates was given a cup of poison. Jesus is saying, Peter, you need to understand the cup of the Father has been given to me. It is the cup of God's wrath that I have to drink so you don't have to drink it. God is going to absorb his wrath. He's going to take it out all on me. You can't understand Christianity and you can't understand the Son. You can't understand Jesus until you understand that he willingly went to a cross and said, I will absorb, God, all of the wrath that you have against mankind because you are utterly opposed to all sin and all evil. You say, I will take it. He goes on the cross and takes all of it. It's amazing to me. He has warranted wrath against our unwarranted wrath. But he says, I'm going to go anyway. You understand? But we all have sinned. We've all fallen short of the glory of God. And our wrath, that God could hold that against us, but he doesn't. He says, it doesn't matter. I'm going to send my Son into the world. I'm going to send him on a cross, and he is going to drink the cup that is there. What do you think it means when he's on the cross and he cries out, it is finished? He has taken the full wrath of God on himself. I don't even know. We can't even comprehend what that was like. No wonder he is sweating drops of blood in the Garden of Gethsemane. Because he's taking on the wrath of the world. On the cross, he drank the cup of the Father. It's hard to... You see a lot of people over the years that, I don't believe in a God of judgment. I don't believe in a God who sends people to hell, right? Do you hear people say that? At least I hear people say that all the time. I think he loves people. I think he loves people. There's no greater act of love than the creation of hell at the end of the day. That's how much God loves humanity, and that's how much he hates sin, that hell was created. And I know that's not what the world really thinks, but at the end of the day, that is really true. C.S. Lewis, how do I not bring C.S. Lewis into a conversation like this? C.S. Lewis, he once said, he gave a story, and I kind of liked it. He said, what if you had a friend who was standing by your side, and they're watching a bonfire, and they looked at you, and they said, I want to show you how much I love you. Ready? And they jump into the fire. Would you go, oh my gosh, I can't believe it. They love me so much. You would go, what is wrong with that person? What were you smoking? What are you on? Because that is not normal, rational behavior, correct? Temporizing it a little bit, all right? He wouldn't have said that, but you get the idea. Now, he says, take a different situation. If you're standing in front of a burning house and your child is in that house and your friend runs into the house to save the child, right, and loses their life in trying to save that child, what would you say? You'd say, oh my gosh, how my friend loved me, that he was willing to give up his life for me. He was willing to give up his life for my son who is there. And Lewis goes on to say, if Jesus dies, gives up his life on the cross, and we're not in any trouble, we don't have the wrath of God on us. And at the end of the day, we're not on our way to eternity without God. We're not lost. Then his death isn't a sign of love. It's outrageous, it's wicked, and it's totally crazy. But it does make sense that he did it. He went into the fire because of how much he loves us. I don't know if that makes any sense. It's C.S. Lewis being C.S. Lewis. Do you realize we deserve the wrath of God? The substitutionary atonement. And this is too, like, I can't even, some of this stuff is just so, like, he goes on to say, Lewis, I didn't put this up, but he says, the cross shows so God can love us and be absolutely just at the same time. I can't say it any better than that. The cup of the Father means he equally just and equally, the cup of the Father means he's equally just and equally loving at the same time. And he says, only if you see Jesus taking the wrath of God will you really understand the magnitude of his love. I deserve the wrath of God, and so do you. We don't. We're not under wrath, and we're not under condemnation because of what Jesus did on the cross. At the end of the day, what I'm trying to give you in the beginning, I almost, you know what? I never do this. I almost want to go back, and I'm gonna kind of stop here. Right? It's kind of heavy, but I'm gonna go back, and I want to read. I'm actually going to read this quote one more time to us. I've never done this in a sermon. I just feel led to. I want to read this quote to you again one more time, and I want it to sink in. And then it's 11:15. I've been doing this for weeks. If anybody wants to, if you have a question, if you have something that you would like to say based on the topic today, I'm going to give you a mic, and you can. But let's read this one more time. You okay with that? Okay. Becky Pippert says, think how we feel when we see someone we love ravaged by unwise actions or relationships. We respond with benign tolerance as we might toward strangers, far from it. Anger isn't the opposite of love. Hate is, and the final form of hate is indifference. That is, to me, is just life-changing. That God loved us so much that he said, I am not going to be indifferent, that I'm going to jump in here because of how much I love you. A wrathless God cannot be a loving God. Human love offers a true analogy. The more a father loves his son, the more he hates him. If I, a flawed, narcissistic, sinful woman, can feel this much pain and anger over someone's condition, how much more a morally perfect God who made them? God's wrath, here it is, saints. God's wrath is not a cranky explosion, but a settled opposition to the cancer, just eating out the insides of the human race he loves. That is who your God is. He's got a bad rap. His wrath is justified because that's how much he hates sin, and that's how much he hates this world. Get that message out, and you tell other people. we may not be able to say it as well as she said it here or Lewis, but this is a message that has to go out about who God is and how patient he is and what his wrath is. You can't understand a loving God until you understand the wrath. Anybody? Comments? I could listen, I could go into the bowls of, I think I'm explaining what things are and what's happening by trying to preach a sermon like this. I don't know. That's just the way God gave it to me. And it's the way I was trying to find my way. None of this is easy, preaching from Revelation. Anybody? Comment? Question? Anything? Maybe not. Just throwing it out. Buddy. Say anything? Yeah. You want to add something? But you're more than welcome to, because I feel very uncomfortable teaching the topic. I said that. Yeah. You want a microphone or what? I think it's who's the guy that wrote that book? What was it, John Bevere, The Bait of Satan? And I think it's more and more, the bait is getting more tantalizing. It's becoming more attractive to become offended. But it's always that, we always hear in that book, it's more about being offended at other people. But we really need to look at the areas where we're offended at God. Because I don't feel like that's taught, right? I don't feel like that's, no. Those are the areas you have to look at deep in your heart and go, where am I offended at you because things didn't work out the way I wanted to? I didn't get the relationship that I wanted. I didn't get the house or the job, whatever it may be, because we feel like we're entitled to that because we followed the rules and we've done the right thing in life. Oh,
Women's retreat some years ago in the city, and we did 3 nights. And the first night was being offended at God, being tempted to be offended at God. The second night was being tempted to be offended at people. And the third night was being tempted to be offended at yourself. And that's a big one. That's a really, really big one. So that's what John Bevere. Yeah, well, okay, being offended at ourselves is,
I don't know if this is on. I love the fact that I ended. Here, somebody else, like Pastor Linda, a couple of other people, share their perspective on the topic. I think it's powerful. I think you need to do it more. I love it.
Hey, James, what's the name of the hall that Paul spoke in? Ted, where's Ted? In Ephesus. He was in Ephesus for 2 years, and it starts with the T. Anybody know? Chris, do you remember? Say it again. Starts with a T. Okay. Anyway, so Paul not only preached the gospel to people, but he went to a hall. They don't know what this. Nobody really knows much about the hall, but he'd go every day, all day, and he'd get in an auditorium with people, and he'd just talk with them. Just what we're doing. They would reason together. The word, Ted, you quoted it. Acts, you gave me the... Tyrannus.
Yeah,
That's it. Acts, I don't remember which chapter that's in, but... Yeah, so it just says that Paul reasoned with people, and they did just this. And I think, James, some of the way that, those of us here that have been together and those of us that have some responsibility to lead here, we're really interested in breaking the box of just the, the first century church didn't do this. They didn't look at the back of the head of the person in front of them. They didn't sit like an audience. They weren't an audience together. And this has kind of done this to us as the church. They were in homes. They were talking. They were singing, they were sharing lives. And we understand that there's a role for this, and there's a place for this. The apostles, taught. But saints, really, a community is more, it's not just an auditorium that we're just sitting here and one person gets up and just as James said. So he did this. Paul did this, and he'd go and they'd reason together, and people would ask questions. And I think that's one of the things that we're kind of like, when we do panels, which you're going to do next week.
Yeah, we have a panel we haven't had one in a while. We try to do them like quarterly.
Yeah.
To look at relevant cultural events and how they are tethered to, pertain to, end time prophecy. We're overdue.
Yep.
We need-
Yep.
yeah.
Because, saints, I'm going to talk in a few weeks, and one of the things I want to really help us to see, because I've been struggling with this myself for decades maybe, we talk about having your mind renewed as a Christian. But most of us think that means I can memorize the Bible and I get the word. Okay, I just keep saying, okay, perfect love, cast out fear, cast out fear. We keep thinking that it's just information in our head that transforms us. It's not just information. It's revelation in your spirit that really changes you.
Yeah.
And so what the Lord wants to do, in our humble opinions, is we're not here to just keep gaining more information. How many know that 3 o'clock in the morning, it's not really just information you need? Give me some feedback. How many, raise your hand if this makes sense to you. Because you're really hard to look at sometimes, guys.
I think because of the topic was so hard and heavy. Yeah,
No.
it's a lot to probably.
Does it make sense to you? We need revelation from the Spirit. It's revelation that changes your life. It's not just a history course, or we're going and we're studying Shakespeare and we're learning. Like, we could come back and talk about Abraham Lincoln, and yeah, it was amazing. Look at all the things he did.
Yeah.
And then walk out and say, but we're not coming here just to talk about Jesus Christ. If we're not experiencing Jesus Christ, that's my burden. And I'm going to be talking about it more in the Wednesdays to come. How do you connect with God? Because you know what? The church, information doesn't help me connect with God. I knew a lot of things about Joe Lecce before I ever met him. Don't get your head big now, okay? I heard what a great athlete he was, and I heard things like that. I knew facts about him, but I didn't know him. And that's what the church, just information about Jesus does not revolutionize your life. How many would say amen to that? Amen. So, okay, anyway, did I go off from offenses?
No, I think it's, honestly, I think it's good. I look at it as your, as your son, too, that you get to, it's kind of it's precious.
He's precious, isn't he? He's my baby. He's my baby.
We won't have this forever.
Yeah.
So then the pressure, I'm never going to be you, so.
Good
No,
grief.
I'm just saying, it's nice to have it.
I could never preach
Sorry.
a message like you did today. Well, guys, one of your biggest temptations is to be offended at yourself.
Yeah.
Because it's dawned on me lately that I could stop about 4 or 5 times a day and say, oh, Lord, thank you, you've forgiven Linda. Help me. I just take that forgiveness right now. It's like you have a constant record. You didn't love enough. You didn't do this enough. You shouldn't have done that. Do I live in a world by myself, or does anybody else live in the world I live in? And it's like, and I felt like the Lord said, Linda, you could drop down in your spirit, which we're going to talk about in the next month. How do you drop down in your spirit and get out of just your head? But you drop down in your spirit, and you can realize, I'm actually going to challenge you this week. Every day, I want you to stop and think, Lord, let the Holy Spirit tap me when I'm tempted to be offended at myself. Everybody can say, well, we all talk about offended at each other and we've got to forgive. We all know that. But I'm telling you, if you're walking around with some offense at yourself for something you did or something you didn't do, you need God to free you from that. Because the foundation of the gospel, we've been talking about it, really talking about it for the last few years. You'll never be more loved or more forgiven or more valued than you are right this minute. But you don't know what I don't care. It doesn't matter. Then you're disgracing that cross. If you say that there's something you did that was too much for Jesus to forgive you for, then you're stepping all over the finished work of Jesus. And I can tell you, 50 years I've walked with the Master, and I've been a serious person toward him. And it only is like the last 10 years that I have realized how much I have not seen myself through his lenses. It's always like, well, you shouldn't have done that, and you should have done that better, and I never realized how much I was allowing the records, the voices in my head. He wants to separate you from God in your inside. He wants you to feel, well, you can't go to him now because, the way you talked to Joe this morning, that was really, if the church would have heard you that, well, boy, they'd all, am I right?
Yeah.
And listen, there's nobody who's got it all worked out, guys. Nobody. Did Ted said last week,
I feel like you're in kindergarten.
you know what? The more you walk with God, the more you
with
know
God, the more
you're
you
in
don't
kindergarten.
know, the more you're like, wow, the more you
Yeah.
like, geez.
Ted, what you said? You want to
Yeah.
say something? We're in the process. What did you say? What did you say? We're in a process. What was the thing again?
It was so good. He just,
What did I say? Which part? Which part?
Just the fact that trust the process. That we're in a process, right?
yeah.
He's emptying us. He's filling us, and I'm obviously I'm related to you. I have the same problem. I'm always worse on myself, and asking God forgive me for this. I didn't do that. I should. And I remember Ernie, who married us, said he had this. Can I just say this woman? I don't know if we know who she was. Did terrible things to her kids, and then later she said to him every day, I asked God for forgiveness for what I did. And Ernie said, you only had to ask once.
Wow.
And you know what, saints? Now, this is the last thing. Now, please get this, because it's really powerful. He wants you. The devil wants you there. You know why? Because you're not interested in loving anybody else when you live there. You're so self-centered. When you're listening to the devil about yourself, where are your eyes? On yourself? Where are you? What are you thinking about? Yourself. What do you feel? What do you feel? You feel guilt? You feel shame? Oh, that's good. Those toxic emotions, we're going to be talking about it in the next few months. Those toxic emotions, the church tells us what to think, and the church tells us how to behave, but the church has not done a good job helping us with our toxic emotions.
You know what you're going to do? I'm going to make you do?
Real short.
Inside Out Part 2 is coming out this summer. There's new emotions.
Awesome.
So you need to sermonize. I'm not doing it. You're going to sermonize Inside Out too. We're going to watch it. We're going to take notes. And then you're going to.
You know why? Because I am more convinced today. I am more convinced today. Remember when we did Pete Scazzaro? Yeah. And Pete was great for a point to me, but then his discipline started to become legalistic to me. And I kind of had to distance myself from Pete, to be honest with you, if you get that. But he did say, you cannot be spiritual if you're emotionally immature. And guys, it is the truth. Do you know what transformation is? I'm giving you my sermon I was going to do. You're hearing the whole thing. Okay. Oh, I need to stop. I know. You see, you need to stop me. You need to stop me. Go ahead, Chris.
No, I
Sorry.
just want to, there's so much depth, like you said, he gets the revelation that's behind it, these conversations going on. I think in a very simple scripture, remember Jesus said, blessed are they who are not offended in me. Yeah. And I always looked at that one. Of course,
That was with John the Baptist. Yep.
yeah, blessed, blessed, if you're not offended, who's offended at Jesus, But time goes by, everything we're saying. Yeah. So now, that takes us from that to this, being offended at yourself and like the things Teddy's talking about. Yeah. So let's say, by this stage, I still got anger and I still get worried at this, and you're offended at yourself. But guess what? Your real offense is against him because he's your life, and he accepts you at this stage. I mean, when Jesus was an infant, he was an infant. When he was a child, he was a child. When he was older, he was older. So Jesus was, so are we. So this is the point. When I'm offended at me, I'm really offended at him. It's as though, I'm not saying this, but subconsciously I'm saying, by now you should have done this.
Yeah, you're right.
I shouldn't feel this fear. I shouldn't feel this anger. I'm offended at myself because I'm offended at you. That's what's going on subconsciously. So when Jesus says, blessed are you for not being offended at me, he just doesn't mean me personally on the throne up there. He means every aspect of me in your life. So that's where...
It means we're still the center of our own universe. Right. That's what it means, right? No, that's it. It means we're at the center.
Ted,
He's
pray
not.
us out. Pray us out. We're done. Pray us out.
No.
Oh,
Okay.
you. Who?
Okay. No, it's just
Sister, your older sister
we
just.
have to get ourselves off the throne. and he's got to get us off. Our anger at him is because, like you said, religion is you stay there.
Yeah.
I'll do what I have to do.
Yes.
Don't hurt me. Don't hurt my
Yes.
kids. Don't hurt my wife.
Yes.
We'll make our deal.
Give
Sorry.
Give us the quote. Oh,
I didn't know there'd be a pop quiz today.
about, it was about you haven't failed enough. What was the one you haven't failed enough?
You always have great quotes, these pithy sayings.
C.S. Lewis said, something about
Aphorisms.
you haven't
Wait, Lewis?
you haven't failed enough. I'll post
You
it later.
always did this. You always just learned the material for the test. You always did this. You always did this. You learned the
I'm kinda
material for
same
the
way.
sermon, and now you
I'm the
forgot
same
it.
way.
Yeah.
Pray us out.
The thing is this, saints. Before you walk out of here today, all the things that you're offended at yourself for, the things that you should have done differently. Do you know you have to go to junior high school to get to high school? You had to go through it. You have to find out what you're like without Jesus. And when you think, I had the biggest emotional breakdown before the Lord one time in my life, and I was so mad at God. And it took me months to forgive myself for it. I said things I'd be embarrassed if you heard to him. And do you know what he said to me 3 months later? He said, I know you thought I was angry at you for that, but I was clapping and applauding you because finally you faced the truth, and now the elder brother, the elder sister, and now you found out, because I had that thing does hit us all. Well, I'm serving you. I'm doing the best I can. And now this happens in my life, and why did this happen to me? Is there anybody here who has never thought that? Because we want you to stand so that we can give you an ovation today. Because we really want to recognize you. Anybody here
Or
that's never...
excommunicate you.
Sorry?
You don't belong. Like you're
Yeah.
otherworldly.
Yeah, we want to applaud you. If you've never been there, because I've been there. Have you been there?
Yeah.
Yeah, Meg, have you been there? Yeah, we've been there.
All right, save it for your next.
Okay, so I'm coming to, I'm landing though. I'm landing.
Go ahead.
I'm landing.
I'm your co-pilot.
I know we're landing. I know, I really am landing now. I just have such a passion for us as a community to really learn to see ourselves the way God sees us. He doesn't see you in Adam. He sees you through his Son. And he, whoever you are this morning, whatever you've done, he is crazy about you.
Yeah.
If you were the only person that ever lived, he would have gone to the cross for you.
It's powerful.
So, Father, these things are so,
so
Pastor
deep.
said this morning, we preach over our heads, we talk over our heads, but we know by the witness of your Spirit. Father, James and I just stand today and we pray for every person in this room as we walk out the doors, all of us today. We release a revelation to every person's heart that they are the loved of God, that they are, when they go to God about their sins that they have repented of, God is, I have no idea what you're talking about. Lord, let your finished work be real experientially in our lives. It's not because it's written in a book somewhere in heaven that we're forgiven. It's written in my heart. And Father, that's what we just loose a spirit in this community to live in the love and forgiveness of God. And we're going to give you, Lord, we're just going to give you all the praise and glory for it, because it's all about you, Jesus. It's all about you. Amen.
Have a great week. That's it. It's a wrap.